You're listening to Kill Cliff's Hazard Ground podcast, with service members from across the military sharing their stories of combat and survival. And now, here's your host, Mark Zinno.
Welcome into the Hazard Ground podcast. As always, we appreciate you joining us each and every week. Our normal set of circumstances before we get to this week's guest, who, oh, by the way, was awarded a Purple Heart finally after a long overdue bureaucracy. We'll get to that story coming up in just a moment. But a reminder to everybody to follow us on all the social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Hazard Ground Podcast. Please continue to leave Apple reviews. Give us a 5-star rating. Tell us why you love the show. And I personally love the feedback, guys. I mean, it's just great to hear and see the reactions that you guys have to the show. And continue to send us love notes, because it's why we do this show. It's for the audience out there. So we certainly appreciate it. Plus, it helps grow the show. If you guys would like to take part in our Amazon promotion, you can go to our website at hazardground.com. It's a really easy way for you guys to help out veterans charities all across America, because you go to hazardground.com, click on the Amazon button at the bottom of the homepage or under the sponsors tab. It redirects you to Amazon. You can do all of your normal Amazon shopping. Buy anything you want. Buy a lot of what you want. Why? Because we get a percentage of what you guys spend, and then we'll donate a percentage of that back to some of the charities and organizations you've heard featured here on the Hazard Ground. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can watch all of our episodes there, and download the Kill Cliff TV app, because all of our episodes are available on Kill Cliff TV and their app as well to watch. And please go to killcliff.com for all of your clean energy drinks. Kill Cliff. See, this is the Recover. This is one of my favorite drinks in the lemon lime flavor. Go to killcliff.com. Order all of your clean energy. Founded by a former Navy SEAL. A lot of their proceeds go to the Navy SEAL Foundation. Just a great company, headquartered right here in the United States in Atlanta, Georgia. And they make fantastic clean energy workout drinks, a pre-workout and a post-workout that I just love. Plus, they have CBD if you guys are into that. All right. This week's guest is a retired Army Staff Sergeant who spent over 22 years both on active duty and in the National Guard, specifically in the Ohio National Guard. He's got 3 total deployments overseas, including his final one to Iraq in January 2020, where, if you remember, a base was bombed in retaliation for the United States in a drone strike, taking out Qasem Soleimani, and Iran struck back at the United States and fired rockets at a base, and he was one of several soldiers who was injured in that rocket attack. But it took him nearly 2 years to earn his Purple Heart that he was so justly due, and he finally got it. Here to tell that story is Aaron Futrell on the Hazard Ground podcast. Aaron, welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Hey, how you doing?
It's great to have you here. And full disclosure, I read your story on military.com, and the author was a friend of mine, Steve Bainin, who's also a former guest here on the show. And I immediately contacted Steve. I'm like, Steve, I need to tell the story. What's going on here? And so we chatted back and forth, and he told me how great of a story it was, but I want to hear it from you in your words. And I do say, and I don't even know if congratulations is the right word. I would congratulate you on beating the government bureaucracy that took so long to get for you and all the other soldiers in the National Guard who it took so long to get their awards. And I'll highlight this at the beginning of this and say, as a guardsman myself, and somebody who did active duty, has had a lot of active duty time. Yes, when it comes to things like awards and high-level awards, there is a sort of, let's just call it a shaded view of guardsmen, and do they kind of really deserve the same sort of things that active duty soldiers get, which is a ridiculous notion. It's stupid. It's archaic. It's draconian. It's machismo. Oh, we're better than you because we're active duty. I've done both. I mean, I never thought I was a better soldier on active duty than I did in the Guard just because I did it 5 days a week. Again, clearly a different conversation, but I do want to say congratulations for everything.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've being active duty, I was 4 years active duty and then 16 years Guard. I've seen a little bit of both worlds, and especially since the war, in Iraq and Afghanistan, the Guard has been asked to do a whole lot on a whole lot less, and you can't say enough about the Guard, what they've done.
Yeah.
And to step up to the plate, to hold full-time jobs plus do full-time Guard work, because it is almost a full-time job. Especially, I'm in aviation, and how much the pilots have to come in on their off time to keep up flying because they keep the same type of minimums that the active duty guys keep.
Yes.
And most people don't know that. Aviation, since I'm in aviation, it's crazy. Was a full-time federal technician before I was medically retired.
Oh, wow.
So I worked full-time for the Guard. So I get a little bit of both. So I was a Guard civilian. That's the best way to explain it. So I got to see, the M-Day guys, the 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year. That's really isn't that. Here's my cat hanging out.
And that's, well, but it's funny because you say that. I mean, I've been saying that for the last 15 years. 1 week in a month, my ass, right? Like it hasn't, that's not what you've had to work hard over the last 15 years as a guardsman or reservist to hold to just 1 week in a month and 2 weeks during, like you're literally dodging deployments and missions and everything. Like it is to the point where it's like you would be looked at as one of those, blank bags, S bags, as we talk about, who just, is not really into what raising your right hand was all about, if you've been able to avoid that. And nobody has been able to. So it's been a major initiative for the Guard and the reserves, and how much they've asked of us over the last 20 plus years to sustain this level of combat and operational tempo that we've been under. And I did forget to mention, to your credit, among all the other things, you have written 3 books on hunting. You're a big outdoorsman, and so if you just Google Aaron Futrell, you'll get his books to come up on Amazon and everything else. So we'll talk a little bit more about that down the road, how you squeeze 3 books in there. But start back at the beginning. How and why'd you join the Army?
I had no idea what I wanted to do after high school. Like I went to a small private Christian school. I knew I was smart enough to go to college. I had good grades, and I was definitely, but I had no idea. So I'm like, I could either go to college, take out student loans, waste my time for the first few years and figure it out, or I could, join the Army and see the world and get the GI Bill and figure out what I was going to do 4 years later. So my best friend enlisted, the year before, since he was a year older than me. And so I decided, why not do that? Go join the Army, go see the world, do something instead of, get 4 years in debt, or probably end up being 6 years, because it would take me 2 years to figure out what I wanted to do. And, so I enlisted, became a ammunition specialist, and my first duty station was in Miesau, Germany, in the 23rd Ordnance Company.
Wow.
So went to basic training. What was that? 2 weeks after graduation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my mom was pretty surprised when I.
And so wait, I have to add. So were you at Redstone Arsenal, or were you at Aberdeen Proving Grounds?
Redstone Arsenal.
Okay, yeah, because you're a munitions guy, not a maintenance ordnance guy. I'm an ordnance by trade is what I was branched.
Oh, okay.
Coming out of college, but I was. We're close to the same age and have both spent the same amount of years. But my first class was the first year that they combined the maintenance and ammunition for the officers. I think the enlisted is still separate. But
okay.
They used to be able to branch into the maintenance world for officers in the ordnance field, or into the munitions world, and they used to be 2 separate MOSs. They got combined into one, and I was the first year first year group that had happened. So I did all my ammunition training, because I got both of them at Aberdeen Proving Grounds, where my basic course was. So, but I guess Redstone is still the home of Army munitions, if you will. And has been since World War II. So make of that what you will. So when you get out, you end up going to, you knew nothing about the Army getting in, I guess, right?
No, I knew very little. I had not very many people were in the service. My grandpa was in the Navy during Korea. My uncle was and I had uncles that were in Vietnam, but my dad never served. He got his draft card the last year they had the draft, so he didn't even have to report to anything. So,
and this is pre 9/11, obviously.
Oh yeah, pre 9/11.
Yeah.
So, so I signed under Clinton was president. It was when I was in AIT is when they had the election, and there's all the hanging chads and everything. I didn't know who was going to be president.
We were such fools. What did we know? What did we know? Our late 90s, early 2000s signees. What did we know?
Yeah, it was it's pretty safe. I'm not, what am I going to do? I'm not going to go to war.
No.
Never had no idea anything was going to happen.
Yeah, boy.
We hadn't had the last conflict was Grenada.
Right, and that wasn't even part of anything.
And what was that?
Yeah. I mean, other than that, it was
Yeah,
Somalia,
Grenada
obviously.
and Panama.
Yeah. But still, I mean, kind of crazy times. So you get to Germany. Is that where you are on 9/11?
Yeah, I was stationed in Germany, but I was actually TDY in Slovenia at the time.
Oh, wow.
They were switching out helicopters in Bosnia. So they were unloading helicopters off of a boat. They needed guys to pull guard duty on this port. So I volunteered because it needed something to do. So it sounded like fun. So they just unloaded a bunch of helicopters, flew into Bosnia. We were waiting for helicopters to fly back in, and they were going to break them down and load them on a boat and ship them back to the U.S. And I was sitting at this front gate, and all of a sudden, one of the MPs that were helping us came running out and said, "Nobody comes in, nobody goes out. There's just been a terrorist attack in the United States." And I'm like, what is going on? And we didn't know anything. That's all I heard for like the next probably hour. And then slowly information's trickling in that they flew planes into the World Trade Centers. And then later on, they flew a plane into the Pentagon. And I'm just sitting there I didn't even see footage for the next probably 3 or 4 hours until my shift was over. And then I was able to finally go in and actually watch CNN and actually see the footage, see what was going on. And everything was kind of surreal being in a foreign country on a makeshift base. And the one thing that still sticks out in my mind about that day is me and this young, butter bar were standing there looking over the Adriatic Sea on this port. And he looks at me. I'm a young PFC, been in the Army not even a year and a half. And he goes, "You know what this means, right?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "We're going to war." I'm like, "Yeah." and that's all we said. And we just stayed out there and looked at the sunset. And we're like, "Yeah." And it's like, that sticks out in my mind is like, that's the day my life changed. Like everybody's life changes. Like one day, you're just me and this lieutenant looking over the Adriatic Sea at the sunset, realizing that, my career is totally going to change from, being a time of peace and a time of war. And that's kind of been like the moment that I kind of bookmark in my mind as September 11th, knowing that the planes hit the World Trade Center. And that's kind of turning the page from peace to war is that scene of just me and this lieutenant. I don't even know his name. I can't even remember. It's like, wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And so quickly, how quickly do you get to work? Because your first deployment on active duty is in Afghanistan, correct?
Correct. Then I went after so it was another 2 to 3 weeks in Slovenia. I don't remember. We go back to Germany, and then, things are crazy there because it's we're in the largest ammunition dump outside the United States.
Wow.
So we just start packing ammunition. It's just like one after another. We're just packing mill vans and everything, getting ready for Afghanistan invasion. And then I'm there another year. And then we start getting everything after that. It starts rumblings about Iraq. So we start getting stuff packed for Iraq. We're working pretty much 24-hour ops where we're working 10-hour, pretty much 12 hours on, 10 hours off with like an hour in between each shift. Just people would bring ammunition to the railhead and then we'd pack it in shipping containers, just like nonstop. During the day, they'd pull the ammunition. At night, we'd pack it in shipping containers, and that's all we would do. We did that for almost 3 months straight without a day off. And then by that time, it was time for me to PCS back to the States. So then I cleared for a month and then went to PCS to Fort Bragg. I arrived in Bragg and got to my unit, the 8th Ordnance Company. Arrived to my platoon and was like, "Hey, we're going to Afghanistan in a month. You want to go?" I'm like,
"Oh, wow.
Sure." I had nothing else to do. What I was going to do is sit around Bragg and not do anything and be part of the rear detachment, which I knew would have been boring. So I went to Afghanistan. So as soon as I showed back in the States, was there a month, then shipped off to Afghanistan, where I went to worked in the ASP in Bagram for I think it was 6-month rotation.
Now, what was that like?
That was hot, but
hot as in like action hot, or hot as in just like temperature hot?
Temperature hot, because
okay.
Bagram at that time, so it was 2003. It was mainly controlled by the Northern Alliance.
Gotcha.
So Bagram was relatively peaceful at that time. So we got mortared once while I was over there, and they barely hit the base. I think it landed like 150 meters outside the wire. And there was like a guy shooting sniper shots once. So entire 6 months, there was 2 incidents on base and in 6 months. And other than that, there was nothing. And the only other incident was a guy decided to drive his Humvee outside the barbed wire and hit a landmine. So, because he was stupid, the guy in our battalion, and messed up the front of his Humvee. Other than that, it was, from like enemy action, there was nothing besides, when guys would go outside the wire.
Now, how long were you there for again?
6 months.
Okay.
Before a guard unit replaced us. They were from Pennsylvania, I think. I don't remember, but over there, we shipped ammunition all over Afghanistan, and then supplied all the Bagram units, because everything was flown into Bagram then. So all the big, not C-130s, but the C-17s and C-3s or whatever, because there was the only one place with a big airstrip. So they flew all the ammunition in, we unloaded it, and then put it on the smaller planes or helicopters, and they flew it out to the like the Kandahar and all the smaller FOBs.
So this is 2003, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, and let's just timeline it for civilians who don't remember, right? I mean, yes, it was hot in late 2001 and 2002 because that's where the initial invasion started. By 2003, obviously the focus had shifted to Iraq, and Afghanistan was sort of, at that point in time, a little bit of an afterthought.
To add more of a timeline to that, the day our deployment had to shift 2 weeks because of the invasion of Iraq, and there were no planes for us. So as they were pushing north out of Kuwait into Iraq, is the day we shipped to Afghanistan. It's like when we shipped to Afghanistan.
Priorities,
and so
right.
They delayed us a week. So I don't remember much about the initial Iraq invasion because I was in Afghanistan, and I didn't see much of it. So like news-wise, I'm kind of blind in that area, because I was focused on other stuff over there, and you don't see a lot. So I remember like the first week of the initial push, and that's about it, because then we jumped on a plane and they flew us into Bagram.
You have missed shock and awe. You missed both of them. They both sort of flew you by in exchange for boredom and quiet. In Afghanistan at that point in time.
Yeah, and Afghanistan at that point was at least Bagram was quiet. Talking to some of our other guys from our unit who were in Kandahar. Kandahar was a little bit crazier. They got mortared a little bit more, and they got shot at a little bit more, but still not as much as later on in the conflict, where Afghanistan became more the Wild West and Iraq was a little bit quieter.
Sure. All right. You get back in late 2003, right? After 6 months there. Did you feel like your time there was like useful? Did you feel like, what did I just do for 6 months? Was I really involved in anything? Like, what was your thought and your mindset after?
I feel like, I've done my duty. I joined the Army to, serve my country. Mm-hmm. I thought most of my service was done in Germany, packing up all the ammunition for the Afghanistan invasion and the Iraq invasion. Then I went and I deployed to a foreign country. I gave ammunition to the Navy SEALs, to the Special Forces, to the infantry. I made sure they were all supplied with ammunition. I, did their turn-ins. We had missions where we had to go to the ASP in the middle of the night, and for a mission for the Special Forces where they had, they needed a whole bunch of C4 that they needed resupplies. So we went and did that for them. So we had missions to do and take care of. It's just we weren't getting shot at that much, but it's not like we didn't have stuff that we needed to do, and it's not like we didn't feel important and that we weren't doing our job, because we definitely did that, and wasn't like we were just sitting around on our thumbs all day. It was like we did our job, and we did it well, and we felt accomplished at the end of our mission. And we came back, and something I definitely felt proud about it and what I did. And when I got back to brag, you know what? My 4 years was just about up. Felt like, I've done my 4 years. I'm ready to go back to Ohio, ready to, ETS out of the military. I've done 4 years. I think I'm ready to go to college, maybe become a police officer or go get my college education. I can say, I've earned my GI Bill. I'm done with the military. I'm proud to have served. I've done my duty. I'm ready to get out. So that's what I did. 4 years is good service, and a lot of people have done that.
No, I mean, listen, it's not everybody has to do 20. Not everybody's meant to do 20. Not everybody needs to do 20. There's a certain.
I know tons of people that haven't done 20.
No, look, from a holistic standpoint, turnover in the force can actually be a good thing, right? Like, I mean, you need to keep things fresh. And while there's a certain contingent of people who will do 20 years and probably beyond 20 years, there's another contingent of people who do their enlistment. Look, you honored your commitment. Nobody can say otherwise, right? You didn't leave early. You didn't get kicked out. You signed on a dotted line. You did exactly what you said you were going to do. And that's more than a lot of other people are willing to do. So,
And I felt like I've done everything I needed to do. I deployed. I've been to foreign countries. I saw the world. When I was in Germany, I traveled to, every single country that bordered Germany plus some. The Army treated me well. I earned my money.
You were all you could be, like the old slogan said. You beat all you could be.
Yeah. So I ETS'd. My first sergeant commander did all they could to try and keep me in, but it was like our MOS was over strength at the time, so they were reclassing everybody. They weren't letting people re-enlist in their own MOS, so he pulled out the list of MOSs that I was qualified for. And he's like, "You're qualified for absolutely every single MOS on the list." He's like, "You can pick anything." I'm like, "No, I'm ready to get out. I'm going to college." That's what my plan was to begin with. So I left. Went to college, and after about a year and a half of college, I kind of missed the Army. And then I realized that the Ohio Army National Guard offers 100% tuition payments. And that I can, I'm like, they'll pay 100% of my tuition, and I can just pocket the GI Bill. And they'll pay me to go to school. And I only have to serve 1 week in a month and 2 weeks out of the summer. So I talked to my friend that was in the Guard, and he hooked me up with a recruiter. And so I'm like, this is crazy. Why don't I do that? And I'll just get paid to go to school. So after a year and a half break in service, I re-enlisted in the National Guard, but they didn't have my MOS.
Right.
Unless I wanted to drive 4 hours to go to drill. And I'm like, no, that's crazy. I'm not going to do that. So what jobs do you have opening, and what's the one with the shortest, the shortest reclass? And they're like, truck driver. I'm like, nope, I'm not being a truck driver. They're like, aviation operations specialist. I'm like, what's that? They're like, it's kind of like an air traffic controller, and it's 4 weeks. Like, sounds good. I'll go join aviation because I hear that's kind of relaxed and chill. And it's 15 minutes from your house. I'm like, I'll do that. So that was pretty much my selection. I'm like, I signed up for 3 years. That was like, that'll give me, enough of the college to do all but 1 year of my degree.
Right. And
see if I like it. It's not a huge commitment. It's not the whole another 6 years. And then, I can make a decision after that if I want to stay in, and we'll go from there. What's 3 years
Makes
of
sense.
1 week in a month, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year.
Yep.
And let's go from there. So I joined the Guard, went to the school. It was pretty easy. I liked my job. Wasn't hard. Wasn't difficult. It's kind of office work. You talk on the radio. You maintain flight records, and you flight follow aircraft. As they fly around, you talk to them on the radio and write down where they're at in case something bad happens to them.
There you go.
It's pretty simple.
So
it's not hard.
That turns into another 16 years of your career and a couple more stints of overseas. And while I don't want to gloss over that service because it is important, in the meantime, again, Dick, you're doing a civilian job, working full-time for the Guard as a technician. You're writing books on the side. You're doing all these things. And, you don't have that without the flexibility that the Guard provides you. But I do want to get to... you're at the tail end of your career here, and you get notification you're going to deploy to Iraq, of all places, in 2020. This is now, by my watch, almost 9 years after the war had ended, or at least 8 years after the war in Iraq had ended. Why do I know that? Because I was there for the official end. I was there in 2011 when they closed everything down. So, yeah. Now, and I think at the time, and somebody may correct me if this I'm wrong, but after the quote, war had ended, we had the largest State Department in the world sitting in Iraq. And by that, I mean by sheer numbers. I think it was over 2,500 people in the State Department, 2,500 soldiers, not including all the State Department personnel themselves who were there. So we still had a presence on ground of troops. But when you hear that you're deploying to Iraq, are you like, why? What are we doing? Like, what are we going there for? Are you curious?
Well, I knew about ISIS. Because when I was deployed in Kuwait in 2015, we reopened, half our other battalion reopened Taji when we were there. So I knew all about that. So our first sergeant, who I worked with at the flight facility, who's now a sergeant major, he pretty much reopened the airfield on Taji. He rebuilt half of it. Wow. So I kind of had a general idea of what was going on. So but I still thought it was going to be kind of a lackluster deployment. It was going to be go over, collect my tax-free money, chill out, run aviation operations for the medevac. Nothing much is going to happen, and just kind of chill out, go work out in the gym, lose some weight like I did the last deployment. And, I wouldn't say have fun, but make the easy tax-free money. Yeah. Like you do.
So you're going over there. I mean, outside of all those things, what is this specific military mission you have while you're there?
I was assigned to the 3rd of the 238th Medevac. So our mission was provide medevac support for Iraq. Our company was made up of 3 states. It was Ohio, Michigan, and New Hampshire. Okay. We're a Black Hawk medevac company. So we're assigned to GSAB, the General Aviation Support Battalion, which also had Chinooks and a couple of assault elements to it. And I believe there was also an attack with the active duty attack element also assigned with the Apaches. But mainly with the medevac, you're kind of a little bit, you feel like you're kind of on your own, because we were divided up into 6 sites in Iraq, Jordan, and Syria, providing medevac coverage for pretty much the entire theater. We had, assets all spread all over, and we worked in conjunction to provide medevac support for all the units that were in country. So if something happened where somebody was injured, or something happened at the hospital where they needed a patient transfer back to the main hospital, which was located in Baghdad, we would pick up the patient from either at a field site or at a hospital, and coordinate with our other units. Like if they're all the way up in Syria, the helicopter would fly down from Syria to say us, which are in Al-Assad, which is like one of the middle sites. Yep. Drop it off to us in Al-Assad. We pick up Al-Assad, fly to Baghdad, or some other, route like in Erbil, they'd fly straight to Baghdad. Sure. Or we, so wherever somebody was injured, we would get them to Baghdad.
Makes sense.
Where they could, receive the best care possible.
When do you arrive in country?
I arrived in country in December.
Okay,
so it was December 19th.
December of 2019. Now, okay, there had been some escalating tensions all across Iraq and the Middle East at that point in time. And just I just want to lead up to the steps here so everybody kind of understands how this goes. The United States had backed out of the Iran nuclear deal in 2018, and they had reimposed sanctions and accused Iranian elements of beginning a campaign to harass U.S. forces in the region in 2019. And then in late December 2019, K-1 Airbase in Iraq was attacked, killing an American contractor. Were you on ground for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we were providing medevac support for that, actually.
Really? Okay.
So yeah, we heard the call. I actually heard the call for that come over the radio. We didn't. My Al-Assad didn't respond to that. Another one of our other units responded to that, and they were actually, the helicopter was flying to come pick him up, and we got the call, told the helicopter to go turn around because we got the call, no patient on board. And as soon as we heard no patient on board, we knew that he died.
Right.
So that's like, oh, that's not good. So,
right. And then United States retaliates there. They do strikes across Iraq and Syria. They kill some Hezbollah militiamen, and then days later, the Shia militiamen retaliated by attacking the U.S. embassy in the Green Zone. Which is right central to Iraq, or Baghdad, rather, on the meeting of the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. So all this had been leading up to what had been going on. And then on January 3rd, Qasem Soleimani, who's an Iranian major general, was killed at a drone strike at Baghdad International Airport. And Soleimani, obviously, bad dude from Iran. And the United States sort of justified the attack, saying it was necessary to stop another imminent attack. But nonetheless, it was sort of this back and forth, tit for tat escalation of attacks. Then, where this is all leading is what happened to you guys. And I think it was on, I want to say January 15th was when it was. Is that it?
No.
January 8th?
It started on January 7th is when we got news of it. So I'll start on January 7th. Okay. The attack actually started on January 8th. But so it was January 7th. I was working the night shift. So I woke up about 4:00 in the afternoon, and I'm getting ready to go eat dinner. So I walk out like I normally did, and everybody is running around like crazy. And my one, she's one of our medics, comes up to me and say, something's going to happen today. I don't know what. We got to pack a 4-day bag. We may be evacuated. I don't know. And then she takes off to her room. I'm like, what is going on? And so I go into our ops, and it's just going nuts in there. So I finally figure out that supposedly something's happening tonight, but nobody knows what. And
it's my favorite kind of intel, by the way. That's my favorite kind of intel.
It's like something's
going to happen, but we don't know what.
And finally heard that Iran is supposed to retaliate, and that's all we know. And they want us to like get the helicopters out of there, and like. So like, okay. And I'm not sure, really might not have to edit that out. I'm not supposed
You'll be okay.
Yeah. But anyways, so they told me, okay, go get Chow, and want you to probably come on duty a little bit early to, help the guy that's on ops right now. And, have him go get Chow and, kind of hang out and just help with stuff as we coordinate everything that's going down. So I end up going to eat, getting my stuff ready, making sure everybody's taken care of, help with the logistics and everything that's going on as we try and figure out what we're going to do. Because the platoon leader is getting pulled like 50 different directions. And then the assistant platoon leaders, he's kind of frazzled, doing the same exact thing, trying to figure out what, because he's leaving, trying to make sure everything's okay. And it's like nobody knows what's going on, and we're trying to prepare for like 50 different contingency plans. It's just nuts. Finally, helicopters leave, and we come up with a plan, because we don't know what's going to happen. We're here. There might be a ground assault. We might hear there's going to be a rocket barrage. We're thinking indirect fire, like Katyusha rockets, because that's the last thing that happened to the base, which was in November, which the last group that we relieved told they shot 5 Katyusha rockets from the town that's next to Al-Assad. I think it was 4 or 5 Katyusha rockets they shot over. It didn't really hit anything. So we're thinking, okay, that's probably what's going to happen. Indirect fire, and maybe the Shia militia group that's stationed right across the airstrip they're going to try and do a ground assault across, or maybe the Shia militia group that's like infiltrated the town is going to rush the front gate, maybe something like that. That's all we know, because none of the information has filtered down to our little compound, because we're kind of all by ourselves. Because being medevac, we're kind of separated out from the rest of the base. Right. We're on our own little compound on the airfield. We're separate from the Army guys. We're separate from the Air Force, which has its advantages. So we were kind of left alone.
Right.
But in this case, it's kind of a disadvantage, because we got no information. We got no information from our battalion, because they kind of forgot that we were there. We just got stuff over Merck and a little bit of afterthought. Oh, yeah, we have guys that are at Al-Assad. We're like the only group from our battalion, and I think they do have some drone guys from our battalion that they notified about this.
Okay, so
but anyway,
yeah. So, when do you start recognizing that the actual attack, the 15 ballistic missiles that are being launched, is happening? Like, how does all that unfold?
All right. So we got word that at let's see here, I got to get my timeline straight. So they're like, okay, at 11 o'clock, 2300, you guys need to be in a bunker. We got that word. 11 o'clock, you need to be in a bunker. So our platoon leader identified 2 bunkers that we're going to split the guys up in on either side of the talk. Okay, this half goes in this bunker, this half goes in that bunker. At 11 o'clock, we'll be in there. Everybody, full battle rattle, full load of everything. We'll hang out there and wait for more information. And, and we'll go from there, because that's all the information we got. So 11 o'clock, we get the word, we hear it over the loudspeaker, seek shelter. So by that time, we changed one of the bunkers. We moved from one bunker to another, to 2 separate bunkers. One of them was the same bunker we identified, but he decided, since it was closer to our living quarters that had a bunch of HESCOs around it and seemed more defensible if there was a ground attack, we moved to these other 2 bunkers. So we moved to these other 2 bunkers and split up the group and both take shelter in there. And we sat there and waited.
I mean, is there any part of you that's nervous or scared at this point in time?
Yeah, of course I'm nervous. I'm nervous because it's like the unknown.
You have no idea what's going to happen.
You don't know what's going to happen. I did get a chance to call my wife before that, because I'm nervous about it. So I ended up calling my wife and told her, something's going down. Something's going to happen. I have no idea what. Just please, just like pray for me. So I was definitely nervous about that. So I did give her a call and just told her that something's happening, because I was definitely nervous about that and a little bit scared.
In retrospect, do you think that was really a call you should have made ahead of time?
In retrospect, maybe, but I felt I had to.
Gotcha.
If I was if you kind of think it's the last time you're going to talk to somebody, you kind of do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, listen, you don't always get that opportunity, especially in combat, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to ask your wife for the better part of 20 minutes what she was going through in that phone conversation.
Yeah.
Being on the receiving end has got to be the most helpless feeling. If you felt helpless after telling her that, she must have felt completely just overwhelmed with helplessness.
Oh yeah. I'll get into more of that later on in the story because it gets worse for her.
All right, keep going.
But it's that part of the story comes afterwards. But
so you're right now. You're hunkering down, waiting for something to happen. We
just sat there.
Okay.
We sat there for like 2 hours, and there was just like nothing. Finally, our platoon leader, he keeps going back every now and then. He'd hop out, go check on the other bunker, make sure they're all right. But eventually, he's just like, I'm gonna go into the talk and check on Merc Chat and see if I got any updates on what's going on.
Right.
Because it said from 11 to like the 3, and it was getting close to that time. So he goes in there and checks. And when later when I heard his story, he said when he got in there, he looked at there and he said he saw in the chat it said ICBMs inbound from Iran. And as soon as he was in there and read that, that's when he heard the sound going over the loudspeaker. It's like incoming, take shelter. So, and it's almost as soon as that goes off, that's when the first one hit. And
so you didn't even have time to crap your pants after hearing that.
No, it's as soon as it's like incoming, take shelter. And then think of like the loudest explosion you've ever heard in your life. Any firework you've ever heard, multiply it by like 100.
Yep.
It just like it went boom. The ground shook, shook underneath you. The air vibrated, and this one hit 500 meters away from us.
Wow.
So it was the platoon leader and the maintenance officers, the ones that went in the talk. I almost.
By the way, for civilians, that's not close. Like if you can feel it from that far away, that is a massive size of munitions.
Yeah.
If you're 500 meters away and you still get all that concussion from it.
Yeah.
That's a huge explosion.
Yeah. Yeah. The ground shook, the air vibrated, and I can't even describe that feeling of the first one. And the only thing that goes through my thought is, oh man, this is real.
Yep.
Because when I was in Afghanistan, I've heard mortars go off, and they sounded like little pops compared to this. It's just like those sound like fireworks going off. Just little booms, and it's nothing. This was just unbelievable. And as soon as that goes off, our maintenance officer comes into the bunker. You know how the bunkers are kind of set up, and they have it's just one of those cement barriers covered with sandbags, and then they have the other cement barrier in front. So he jumps around the side. I'm laying right on the front door. And he pretty much jumps on top of me, and he goes, "They just hit Bravo ramp," which is the next ramp down on the other side of the FARC from us. And as soon as he says that, that's when another one hits, the one that hits right next to us. And I know I'm getting this wrong, but this is how I remember it. As soon as he says that, that's the one that hits 100 meters from us. And as soon as it hits, it just, it's the loudest boom I've ever heard in my life. Instantly, the air is just full of smoke and dust. I felt a concussion wave smack me directly in the face. I kind of just taken back, say a few words I probably shouldn't have. And and I'm like, and and he's just like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." And and all of a sudden, all of us in the bunker are trying to figure out what happened, because like, what did it hit? We think it hit the top, which is like, 30 meters from us. And finally, after a few minutes, we realized that it hit our maintenance hangar, which is 100 meters away. Because I can look up through the door of the bunker, and we see flames shooting up through it. And we see flames and spark and smoke just spewing above us as this thing is just cooking our hangar and just burning. Then after a few minutes, we start hearing small arms rounds start firing. We're like, "What's going on?" And then it took us a few minutes to realize that we had a Connex in there where we stored a bunch of small arms. And
they were cooking off, yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of flares for the helicopters. And and they start cooking off because we start hearing pop, 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 pop. And we're like, "Oh man, are they coming over the
right, that would have been your first thought. Was there a ground attack coming afterwards?
That was our first thought.
Well,
yeah,
that's
that was
normal.
our first thought. Are they coming over? They're like, "Oh no, those are just the rounds cooking off from the hangar." And we're like, "Oh, good." But that's a relief. But it's still, the smoke's going over top of it. Some of it's rolling through the bunker through us, and then that goes on. So it's a little bit quiet for now because just three. And I said before I was wrong, because when you actually see the drone footage later,
mm-hmm.
That's actually the third missile that hits us. But I don't even remember the second one.
Ah, gotcha. Okay.
I don't know. You see you watch the drone footage. There's the one that hits Bravo ramp, one hits Charlie ramp, and then we're on Voodoo ramp is the third missile. For some reason, I don't remember the second missile.
Gotcha. So how long?
I don't know if that's from the concussion,
right,
or if it's just the how you don't remember an incident. You only remember like the main thing that
certain
affects you.
parts of it. Sure, yeah, within your kind of sphere of influence. That was the closest one that hit to you. Were there any other ones that were close to you, or no?
No. Okay. That was the only one. That was one that was closest to us, 100 meters. Then the one on Charlie ramp is probably about 500 meters, like the first one.
Right.
And then I think there actually might have been another one after the one that hit us. I think there was 4 in the first barrage that hit 500 meters away. The one hit right near the chow hall, which was been about 500 meters away. But we're concentrating on the one that's 100 meters away, right. So I don't really remember that one either.
So in total, it's 15 missiles that hit the base. How long does the attack last, from what you remember?
About 2 hours.
So those 15 missiles were the course of over 2 hours?
Yeah, so there's a barrage.
Oh, wow.
Then you have like a 15-minute break. And then they'd call incoming, take shelter, and then more would hit. And they would hit different places on the base. And then you'd have a break, 15 minutes later, incoming. And then more would hit. So it was over the course of like 2 hours that the whole barrage lasted. So, that kind of like messes with your head, that any minute, that if one of those hits, within 50 meters of it, you're probably going to die. So, every time you hear that incoming, knowing how powerful those things are, and to give you kind of a picture of what those missiles look like, imagine 3 telephone poles strapped together with a 1,000-pound warhead over there, 1,000 pounds of high explosive.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and again, it's having lived through that several times, we had what was called a JDAM, and it would set off an alarm, and it wouldn't say incoming, just go, wah, 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 and that was a signal for you to go take cover. When that barrage comes, it is, all you can do is hope you're not in the wrong place. Like, and that is that is like, I'm in a bunker. I'm theoretically supposed to be protected. How am I in the wrong place? Because you're in the wrong place. And that's all you can boil it down to.
Yeah, that bunker's no protection. That bunker was for a mortar.
Yes, it was not meant for an ICBM missile, right?
Yeah,
that missile would have went right through the bunker and left a big hole in the middle of it and obliterated everything underneath it. Yeah, so...
Yeah, when you saw the crater that this thing created, it was 10 feet deep and 30 feet across.
Wow.
And that was through, that was on the ramp, on the aircraft ramp, and that's 18 feet of concrete and rebar. So it was incredible. Like,
and the amazing part is that not a single American soldier was killed in the attack.
Oh, yeah. And for the most part, I think they hit what they were aiming at, because they hit hangars, they hit structure, and they hit areas where helicopters or planes should have been if they were there. So, it's not like they missed. So if they would have targeted like housing areas, they probably would have killed people. That's my thoughts on it. So if people would have been in those hangars, they would have killed people. But
right.
We were in bunkers. We were in places where they didn't fire them at.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's kind of unpack what the rest of what happens next. Well, I shouldn't say what happens next. It's sort of the process of this thing. Is anybody, while you're there, and let me start here actually. When do you officially leave that deployment? You got there in December 2019. When do you leave?
It's like 10 months later.
Okay, so we're talking about like October of 2020. So you finish out the rest of the deployment. At any point in time during that deployment, is anybody talking about injuries sustained, Purple Hearts, things of that nature from the... Okay, so it happens fairly quickly. Because, I mean, I'm sure people got hit with... was anybody shrapnel, or was it all just kind of TBI injuries?
TBI injuries. Our platoon leader was outside the bunker, like I mentioned, when the one hit 100 meters away from it. It knocked him off his feet. He had a severe concussion. And he got a Purple Heart in Walter Reed. And so they put us all in for Purple Hearts right after the event. So we were all diagnosed with traumatic brain injuries, everybody in the bunker.
You were diagnosed in Iraq, though, correct?
In Iraq.
Okay.
So we had a little bit of, they weren't prepared for a mass cal of TBIs. It took a long time to get pretty much everybody that was left on that base were screened for TBIs. So since we were since being a medevac, we had a lot of medical personnel. So we were able to be screened by one of our flight nurses and our flight surgeon, and the 160th, the Special Forces helicopter unit. They were right next to us, so their flight surgeon came over and helped. So he helped screen us for TBIs. And so they were able to get all that documentation down to the base hospital, which kind of sped up the process a little bit for us. But it still was 72 hours after the event that I got my screening. And so, which isn't ideal. They want it within 24 hours of being having a TBI, but, it still took 72 hours. And 3 people from us got their Purple Hearts right away. We were all put in for Purple Hearts. It took a month to get all the paperwork submitted, because that takes a little bit of time to get everybody to write up their statements and to get it sent up through the chain of command. And so it took a month to get everything submitted. And then 3 people got their Purple Hearts while on deployment. The 2 people that were evacuated because they were the platoon leader, because he was evacuated to Walter Reed because he had a more severe brain injury because he was outside of the bunker. Our platoon sergeant, because he's had concussions before, and he had PTSD before this because of his time as a medic at other times serving in Iraq, and it just really affected him. And I feel real bad for him. He's a great guy. And he was evacuated to Germany and then eventually sent to Fort Campbell. And he received his Purple Heart from that. And then our one of our flight nurses, she was evacuated to Germany because she was still having sleep issues and other stuff from the TBI. And then she eventually came back. And it seemed like everybody that got their Purple Heart were people that were evacuated out of country.
Okay.
And
so was that a feeling like...
and that seemed to be the criteria.
Okay.
If you're evacuated out of country, you got a Purple Heart. If you received the same injury and you weren't evacuated out of country, yours was denied, even though you received the exact same injury. I was literally laying on top of my platoon sergeant in the bunker. I was laying on top of his legs. My shoulders were on top of his legs when we were in the bunker. And my brain injury is exactly this. I wouldn't say exactly the same, but my brain injury is the same brain injury he was diagnosed with. Be the exact same injury. But just because of how the medical paperwork, and he got evacuated because of it aggravated a previous injury that he had, and he was evacuated because of it.
Right.
So the commanding general signed off on his.
Okay, and that's the level where it had to go to the commanding general in Iraq at the time, correct?
Correct. That's
okay.
where it got denied at.
So the commanding, along the way, was everybody in the chain of command supportive of all of you guys who weren't evac, saying sign this, and the CG was the only one who said no? Did you ever see the justification as to why? No,
I've got the paperwork signed by my battalion commander and our brigade commander, the lieutenant colonel and the colonel. The colonel came down and says, "Yeah, we're putting you all in for Purple Hearts." Colonel Fixed, and he's the one that after all this was over with, kept fighting for us to get our Purple Hearts.
Just out of curiosity, was that colonel a National Guard colonel, or was he active duty?
He's a National Guard colonel out of Minnesota.
Gotcha.
That's where our brigade was from.
Gotcha. Okay.
So,
and I just
our battalion and brigade.
Sure, but obviously the CG was a active duty guy.
Yep, I think he's now the current commander of Fort Hood. But yeah, he was sitcom commander.
Interesting. Okay, I'll put that in a mental memory bank for later. So when you first find out you're getting denied, what's your reaction, the general reaction of everybody else? Mad, angry, pissed? Were you like, we're going to fight this? What were you thinking?
I really didn't know how to fight it.
Right.
And I look, some of the other guys were definitely more vocal about it than I was. I'm usually pretty low key, and I'm like, this is very frustrating. You kind of feel like I'm injured. I know I'm injured. And you feel like you're being denied something that you deserve. Like a Purple Heart's the award that you don't earn, or you're awarded for how that you like. It's like
well, put it this way. Here's what I was going to say. I'll phrase it this way.
Yeah,
like whether it's the Army Achievement Medal or an ARCOM, an Army Commendation Medal, like you can go on a deployment and you can argue, I did ARCOM work, right? Like this is a level of an ARCOM. You can argue that. And subjectively, somebody else could say no and say, this is ARCOM work, right? But with a Purple Heart, just like you had received, you had the same exact injury write-up as the guy who got on a plane and got medevaced. You both have the same exact injury. And that is the criteria for which one receives a Purple Heart. Well, you've met the same exact criteria. We're not talking about two exactly written the same ARCOMs. Yeah. We're talking about two write-ups for ARCOMs that are completely different. In your case, the write-up would be justified the same medically because a medical doctor said it's exactly the same.
And here's also the kicker. I had the choice to be evacuated or not. It's like the doctor asked me, he's like, do you want to be evacuated? Because there's a time when a month after the injury, when I went for my 1 month checkup, I was having severe headaches. And one of the doctors, actually two of the doctors wanted to evacuate me to Germany. He's like, you need to go to Germany, get yourself right, and possibly get sent home. And for some crazy reason, this other doctor looked at my eyes and thought he saw something. And there's an optometrist in Baghdad, and they ended up medevacing me to Baghdad to see this optometrist. And it turns out the eye thing he thought he saw ended up being not an issue. And that eye issue that he thought me saw was the only thing that stopped me from being evacuated to Germany. It was like, And then he ended up putting me on concussion protocol, and I was put on quarters in my room for 3 days without, with lights off, no phones, and putting me on a whole bunch of headache medication, and
Right.
actually helped my headaches immensely and got me back to where I could actually do my job.
Right. Now,
So-
there are a couple of things at play here.
I was, all I had to do was say, no, send me to Germany, and I would have gotten my Purple Heart.
Right,
kit.
right. And so there's a
So
couple of things at play here that are
this-
important, right? There's this.
So all I had to do was make one statement, and I would have gotten a Purple Heart.
It would have been a heck of a lot easier. There would have been a much less resistance.
Yeah, so just
But-
for saying one sentence to get a Purple Heart versus not getting a Purple Heart, that kind of makes you go, oh, it's bureaucracy. It has nothing to do with my injury.
Sure.
And that kind of, that's what's kind of made me more frustrating.
Right. And the other part that is sort of beaten into us is that no, because if you say, yes, medevac me, it's almost like we're taught to believe we're quitting, right? That we're walking out on everybody else, that we're not toughing it out like everybody else, that we unless the doctor unequivocally says, nope, he's medevac, we're not even having this conversation, that's the only way it's acceptable for you to leave, that the doc, when you can say, I wanted to stay, but the doc made me go. If they give you a choice and you choose yes, there is this general sentiment that you're not a tough guy, all right? And that is that is a sort of mentality that we have to start to pivot and shift from, because for as much as our manpower is our easiest replaceable commodity, that doesn't mean it should be our most disposable commodity, right? Like, we need to take care of the people in uniform as best we can to keep them in uniform and keep them in service in uniform. So there's a lot of that at play, which sort of contributes, because I'm sure as a junior NCO, you're sitting there going, well, I can't set that example I can't quit. I can't walk out. Right? What are my soldiers going to think? What is the platoon leader and the platoon? Well, they were gone, but what's the company commander and the first sergeant going to think? If I decide to do this, they're going to look at me sideways. So we're almost forced to stay in a situation where we needed more evaluation, where we needed more to be looked at to diagnose, and we say no, right? I understand that. I mean, that's, it's a double-edged sword. It's bad, but it's good. It's good, but it's bad. And I'm not sure where to strike that balance. It's different for everybody.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a balance.
When you first get denied, where are you in the deployment? 4 months in, 5 months in?
Probably about halfway through.
About halfway through. So after you get denied, are you going the next 6 months fighting this thing, or you do most of you just say la vie and it is what it is and we'll just
I know there's nothing we can do at our level. I'm at that time an E5. What am I going to do as an E5? They pushed up the chain of command. The colonel comes back down and said he's going to try and fight for it. He's going to try and appeal. And at the end of the deployment, what he says to us, maybe the best thing you can do is try and appeal it through your state.
Yeah.
Maybe go back to the guard, go back to your individual states and try and maybe push it that way through your S1 or something like that. And maybe try that way. And
unfortunately, though, here's the rub in that. Nobody at your state can actually sign off on the Purple Heart, right? Like, if you could handle internally, nobody at your state could do it, because it's got to go up to the Department of the Army for official approval, because that level of award needs that level of approval. And as you said, typically it's not difficult to get, because the barometer, or the measuring stick for, getting a Purple Heart is pretty cut and dry. If you were injured to a certain extent, the Purple Heart sort of comes with it. It's just there. And so, that's the problem with going back through your state at that point in time, is that you're still appealing to a higher authority outside the state regardless.
Yeah. So the only thing I was hoping is that we'd be outside of that one general who denied us. So I know there's a lot of talk that there was some political motivation with President Trump trying to downplay the injuries, which I'm not sure how much I believe on that, because I don't know how much would have been a call from the presidential level, or how far down that would go, because I know that he, or how, if it was like, I can't imagine that he say deny Purple Hearts, or it'd be, some lower level aide saying, try and make this as, because he did say there was no casualties, but he did say that before I even got my TBI screening. That was, there was nobody injured, just a few headaches.
Well, again,
which he did say that.
Look, I can sort of put this on both sides in fairness, right? At that level, let's just forget the even presidential level. Forget the even Department of Defense level. Forget the Department of the Army level. Even at the level of, CENTCOM level, I would brief that as no major injuries, sir. No major injuries, ma'am. We're good to go, right? And then handle it at the lower level. That's the way, if I was the CG, okay, I'm close, not there yet, but close. If I was, that's the way I would brief it. If the president wants to know what the status is, no major injuries. Everybody here is good. We've got some low level injuries that we can take care of at our level, but no need to report any injuries up. We came out of it relatively unscathed, is what I would say. And then I would handle it at the lower level. Now that doesn't mean at the lower level I would ignore the validity of a Purple Heart. Like that's asinine. That's stupid, right? I mean, there's politics aside. I have no problem with the president saying there were no major injuries because, comparatively speaking, I've been to combat with major injuries, lost limbs, lost life, burned bodies. I mean, those are major injuries. Okay, the TBI is a major injury in a minor category, if that makes sense. I have a TBI, right? And so it's one of those things where most of you are going to function through day-to-day life normally, but you're going to have some hiccups, some challenges along the way that most average citizens wouldn't because you have a TBI. That to me is the best classification. That's Mark's personal clarification, not like a medical distinction or anything like that. But again, I say all that to understand. I understand both sides of the ledger, and bringing up the fact that there is political motivation behind it. Okay, maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but I don't think the president at the time mischaracterized it. I don't disagree that it was no major injuries. There were no major injuries. I mean, loss of life is the kind of barometer.
Yeah. But I can also see people saying 135 Purple Hearts. You said there's no major injuries. He's like, and then
it's because, saying, right. It's because of the connotation that comes with a Purple Heart, right? Like everything has to be severe. And that's not the case. I knew a guy who was awarded a Purple Heart during a mission in Iraq. He was the driver of a Humvee. And the Humvee hit a pothole and dove straight like a hole from a previous hole from an explosion, but went right into it and got into a bad accident, and they awarded him a Purple Heart. Nobody had an issue with it. Guy got injured in combat. He was on a combat mission. I mean, that's pretty standard, right?
Oh, yeah.
Not glorious, not glamorous. No one's going to write a book about it, but it is what it is. So you go through the rest of the deployment, you get home, okay? What are you hearing back at your state, and what are they saying to you about sort of pushing this thing forward?
It's like, there's a couple people I'm able to talk to because being in aviation, I have some good friends that a little bit higher ranking than me. So I talked to them about it, and I'm getting nowhere. I don't even know where to go. So I'm half our battalion's deployed because they replaced us. So I'm kind of actually waiting until they get back because that's where actually a lot of the brass that I do know that could actually probably help me out is currently in Iraq and Kuwait at the time. So I'm like, I'm going to wait till they get back so that actually the people that I do know that can possibly help me, that I can talk to them. So like a sergeant major that knows like everybody in the state, he could help me. So that's who I was waiting to. He got back. I was going to talk to him. So he could direct me where to go, who to talk to, and he could put in a good word for me. And I know I talked to him when I redeployed from when I met him in Kuwait. I talked to him and he said he would help me out. And I talked to a couple other people like my lieutenant colonel I know, and he said he'd help me out. But they couldn't do anything in Kuwait, so I'd wait till they got back to Ohio. And so that was my plan. It was like, wait till they get back so that I actually have some higher brass to help me out because I can't do anything as an E5, E6. So that was my plan.
Was there a point where you felt like it was help, like this wasn't going to happen, it just wasn't in the cards?
Pretty much. I'm like, pretty much, I was like, I kind of resigned myself that I'm probably not going to get it. It's just going to be another, they say the Army screws you over a couple times during your career, and this is going to be another time that I just got screwed over.
Does that make you mad?
Yeah, it was like definitely frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely kind of mad, feeling that I deserved something that I didn't get. And, there's a lot of benefits that go with a Purple Heart. There's, college scholarships for my kids. There's VA benefits that go with it. I get free license plates here in Ohio. I don't have to pay for vehicle registration.
And again, you say that and there's a general sense from people who like necessarily don't understand, like, oh, well, you just want the award for all that stuff. No, like no one asks for a Purple Heart. Like no one is running to go get one. Like nobody wanted to sit there for 2 hours while ballistic missiles the size of telephone poles are landing even within 200 meters of you. Like that's not anything anybody willfully signs up for. Like no one goes, hey, go stand in the middle of this field. We'll put cement over your head and hope a missile the size of a telephone pole doesn't hit you. What would you like to do? Like it's not a gamble that people are willing to take.
Like I've told you, it's the award nobody wants, but if you get it, you want it.
Right. If you're entitled to it, you certainly want it. And again, I mean, there are things that I got into a car accident in Baghdad too, a pretty bad one. It was never even discussed of giving me a Purple Heart at the time, and I never thought about even asking for it. I didn't even think it was a thing.
Yeah.
Because this was 2005. Of course, things were a lot different then. TBIs weren't even a thing back then. But nonetheless, so I get it. It's like I never ran towards getting a Purple Heart. Like I actually, hey, I smile that I didn't get a Purple Heart. Thank you. The bad stuff that comes with a Purple Heart probably outweighs everything that is good about getting a Purple Heart.
I'd rather not have headaches and migraines, 3 times a week than I'd gladly give back the Purple Heart and not have these injuries.
And pay for your license plates.
Oh yeah. I'll pay the, $60 a year and and license plate fees.
So what happens next is that it takes a while, but some of the other guards that were with you started getting awarded them, correct?
Here's kind of what happened was I got an email it was actually forwarded to me from my company commander, and he said that everybody that was denied a Purple Heart in Iraq was being resubmitted. This was Veterans Day, right before Veterans Day of, what was that, 2021?
Are you thinking this is a waste of time?
No, I'm like,
okay,
good. And I'm like, awesome. I'm like, and I saw my name on the list. I'm like, they said everybody's being relooked at. And there was an email from Colonel Fix, the colonel from Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Is getting everyone's getting re-put in. I'm like, awesome, because I've already talked to a few people and I wasn't going anywhere in the state. So I'm like, okay, maybe there's a chance. So, and I saw there was like two different lists. There was a list with a whole bunch of names on it, and then a list with 11 names on it, and I'm on the list with 11 names. I'm like, all right. Is that the good list or the bad list? I don't know what's separate with these two lists, but all right. So a story in USA Today came out on Veterans Day 2021 and announcing that they're going to relook at all the Purple Hearts. And then they talked about these other soldiers from like Minnesota and some active duty people, and the process, how they contacted congressmen, and I think one through Florida and a couple other states, and told their stories about having headaches and a lot of the stuff that I was going through, and how they're resubmitting all of them and having all of them relooked at it. I'm like, awesome. This actually sounds like it may have a chance. So I was really excited about it. So not sure how long this is going to take. So it's just like everything else, another waiting game. So the story came out on Veterans Day, which is kind of, I know they were waiting for Veterans Day to do that. So it makes a good story. So fast forward to December, and my one friend, the other guy from Ohio that was in the bunker, not the bunker I was in, but the other bunker, he called me and said, "Hey, I just got a call from the Department of the Army. It says my Purple Heart's been approved."
Whoa.
I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, I didn't get a phone call. He's like, "Yeah, they told me they wanted to give me a call before the news article dropped." And then another USA Today article came out, and they said, "Oh, all these Purple Hearts have been approved, and they're still waiting on 11 to be approved." So I go back and pull up that email. I count the number of names. I'm like, "Oh,
you're on the list. That's the bad list." Yeah, now we figured out that was the bad list.
How did I make this list? I'm like, don't tell me that all these are going to be approved and 11 are going to be. And I'm like, this guy, we're in the same. We're using the other bunker, but I'm looking at the 11 names, and they're all pretty much people that are in the bunker with me, and some of them are in the bunker with him. I'm like, if his got approved, mine's got to have been approved, because all of ours pretty much say the same thing. I don't know how his get approved and mine can't get approved. So it's still a waiting game. So I finally sit down and I wait. And it seemed like it's like the longest 3 weeks of my life until finally I'm sitting there it was actually on a Monday where I'm not working for the guard, but I'm working at my fishing lure shop. And I get a phone call from Fort Knox, and it's like, "Hey, this is so-and-so sergeant from the awards department. And they're like, your Purple Heart's been approved." And I was like, I'm going to start crying. Get a little emotional here.
That's awesome, man. Listen, no, get emotional, bro. That's awesome. I mean, that's like, it's tears of relief, I would assume, right? Like, like you're just like, hey, it's been so long, and I've been living with all these symptoms and everything that hasn't gone away. And damn, man, I mean, this is at least acknowledgement that.
Oh, yeah. It's like my injuries are real.
Yes.
And somebody actually acknowledges that it happened. Not that the attack didn't happen, but the injuries happened, because like a TBI is like, no one sees it.
Right.
No one sees my migraines. You can't, like, if you lose a limb, people see you lost a limb. Like, no one sees, no
one knows when you're dizzy to the point where you just need to lay down, where you're nauseous, where you feel like you're going to throw up, where your head is just pounding. I mean, they don't know
like,
that.
My wife sees it because she's at home with me. It's like I don't know how many people said, like, I tell, like, the VA lists me as 90% disabled. I don't look 90% of the disabled, probably 90% of the time.
Right.
But that 10%, that 10%, is like, I tell people, when I'm good, I'm good. When I'm not good, I'm not good.
Sure.
So, and that's the way like a TBI is. It's like, and especially with the migraines and all that, it's like, especially in the evenings when I've had a long day, and it's like, it hits you hard.
Do you know sort of who the catalyst was that helped push this over the top?
Biggest one I know is Colonel Fix, and just from reading the USA Today articles, I don't know if they just, I can't remember her name. It was, I think it was a Air Force sergeant who contacted her congressman. But I know Colonel Fix was the main driver, at least with the Army side of it.
I mean, do you feel like it says that there's something systemically wrong with our system, that unless we go get a congressman involved, who for whatever reason, congressmen scare the ever-loving shit out of tags and adjutant generals and generals and just in generals in general. For whatever reason, it takes congressmen who have never put on a uniform to get the military and the Army to act, to do what they know is right and what they know should be due for soldiers. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just...
I hope it's an outlier because, I hope the system's not broken.
Right.
But it's like, because especially with TBI, it's like a newer injury that they're recognizing for Purple Hearts. So a lot of people don't know about it.
So you feel like, there is this problem with the system. Well, there's not a problem with the system, but, I hope you're right that the system isn't broken. I just know from being around it a long time, the system isn't broken. It's the actors within the system who believe that they are entitled to make decisions about things that they're not really entitled to make decisions about. Like when it comes down to it, if a medical report says you have a TBI and we are handing out Purple Hearts or TBIs for one guy, then there shouldn't be a general being able to sit there and sign it off and say, nope, I disapprove, because the medical report says otherwise, right? Like that is a decision that should not be left up to a commander who doesn't need to get involved in that decision.
Exactly. It should just be, okay, yes, there's an injury, sign the box. It shouldn't be that difficult.
A Purple Heart essentially is a go, no-go event. Either you have an injury or you don't. Like it's just, again, it sort of bothers me. And we've seen this bureaucracy a little bit unfold, particularly when it comes to the National Guard and the reserves, right? It's harder to get these awards through because there's a commanding general sitting there saying, well, I've got all these active duty guys who were shot at and their vehicle got this and they got one, and I didn't hand out Purple Hearts to them. What am I handing out to these guard guys for? Like, that is also another, overriding philosophy that I think is just stupid.
Yeah. Another case of them looking down on the National Guard guys, where we do the exact same job.
You could argue I'm biased, but again, I've been in the active duty realm enough in my career that, there are plenty of really good Guard soldiers out there. Just because they chose to do something else with their life doesn't mean that they're any less of a service member and a person in uniform. When you look back on all this, do you feel like this sort of puts a capstone on your military service? Like, is this sort of the cherry on top?
Yeah, it did, because it kind of, in a way, because like my last drill was my Purple Heart ceremony, and I was medically retired. Like 2 days afterwards, I got orders to, my retirement orders. Like, and then I didn't have enough time for the next drill. So it was kind of like everything culminated in my entire military career, where everything for the last day of my drill was all about me, which is kind of weird. So it's like everything built up to this like one event. So I served for, 22 years, and I was able to kind of leave on a high note. I guess the one thing about receiving the Purple Heart delayed and having it back, the ceremony back here in Ohio, is my family got to come, my parents, my grandma, my wife. So otherwise I'd received a Purple Heart in Iraq, just the people I served with, which would have been great too. But it was a little bit, kind of special receiving it here. It was kind of frustrating all that I had to go through to get it. But in a way, it kind of was nice receiving it here. So there was kind of some pros and cons to it. So, I got, my wife got to be there, my kids got to be there, my family got to see it. So that was kind of special. So, there were some good things about it. But,
and you get a closer parking spot now at most stores, right?
Oh yeah. So but I had to wait a whole year for my license plates to expire to get new ones, though.
Oh, really? Did you? Okay. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad they're free. When you think about, and oh, by the way, in the interim, I found that that general's name here, who we were referencing
like General
earlier.
White.
Yeah. The Lieutenant General White, who now is, as you correctly stated, is running Fort Hood, and he did not comment on the story. Lieutenant General Robert White did not comment on the story, and didn't say why he denied dozens of Purple Hearts following the attack. If you could meet with him face to face today, what would you say?
I don't know. I never really thought about it. I would just kind of ask him why, and I have no idea what he would say, or just, ask him what his thought process was. And, I don't know if I'd expect an honest answer though.
Yeah, I could understand that. I mean, and again,
because there's officers that I've grown up with or grown up through the military with, that I've known for a long time that I respect highly and that have always treated me fairly. And there's other ones that I, treat with a grain of salt. And, I'm like, okay, you're just going to give me the political answer and I'm just going to, yes, sir, and go about my business. And just
the issue is
dealing with the paperwork with him.
In this case, you win the argument on points, but I'm not sure that matters, right? Like, and that's the frustrating part.
Yeah, I was like, I don't.
Because again,
I don't even know if I want to even talk. I don't even know if I would ask him a question.
Really?
Just let bygones be bygones, and just happy that I got what I deserve, and just let it be, because it'd be probably more frustrating than to have answers.
Well, that's true. I mean, the frustrating part for me as an officer and somebody who still wears the uniform, and I've said this repeatedly. I mean, the right thing should not be that hard. Sometimes the right thing is hard to do. There's no doubt about that. There are hard rights over easy wrongs, and I'm not saying they're wrong, but taking care of soldiers, giving awards to soldiers who deserve it, are easy things that are the right thing to do, and it bears no resemblance on you whatsoever as the leader who signs the award one way or another. I mean, that's the thing. Again, it's one thing to do something with knowledge of fraudulent behavior ahead of time, right? It's another thing, that individual's career is none affected whatsoever by signing approve on all those Purple Hearts. None whatsoever. You're the hero, you're the good guy. You deny them all, and now every time you Google his name, this story will come up where we don't have an answer as to why he denied Purple Hearts to people who rightfully deserve them. That seems like a bad that outweighs the good, but what do I know? I mean, I'm never going to put on a star, so what do I know?
And you lost perspective of a lot of NCOs.
Yeah, and that's
because,
it's for me, from my side,
I'm an
E6. Frustrating.
I was an E6, but if I was still in, and say he takes over my installation, what are my thoughts about him? Like, oh, yeah. Like, I've never met the guy personally. What do I know about him?
And that's the other frustrating part. If you'd like to deny it, you owe people an explanation.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's one thing but to stroke a pen blindly on 80 people and say, you don't deserve this, without ever meeting them, without ever talking to them, without ever understanding their side of the story. That to me also seems like a flaw in leadership. But again, that's just one man's perspective.
Yeah. Especially like I said, it's like, like you're coming from an officer and I'd be coming at from an NCO perspective, is when we see leaderships like that, is we'd kind of, in a way, write the officer off as not caring and not taking care of us. And it's a whole lot easier just to move on. And because there's a lot of times we can't do anything about an officer.
No,
it's, it's like, we're not in the position. It's just like, move on. It's like, I'm not in that position. It's just a lot easier just to march on, do your thing. And,
And
so,
look,
I don't know.
I'll state one more position here, Aaron, that I think is important, and I've held to this throughout my entire career. That I think it should be tough to earn certain awards, right? Because if you give them all out like candy, they hold no value. You know, I reference my own personal story. My first deployment, I absolutely deserved my Bronze Star. I 100% was proud of my Bronze Star. I feel like I earned it, and I did the level of work that was required, and everything that happened to me was up to a Bronze Star. On my second deployment, the general decided all 04s and above were all getting Bronze Stars. And I kept telling people, I didn't do Bronze Star work. I know what it is. I know what the level of it is. I don't deserve this. I'd rather have something else that I don't have, first of all, than a repeat of award and I already do have. But it's not fair to just give this to me because it doesn't have the value that my previous one does. So I 100% think that when it comes to awards, if you hand them out like candy, you know, it's supply and demand. Like, yes, I want to, like, it'd be great to have a Silver Star, but they're so hard to get because so few people actually deserve them, right? If everybody has one, then it's not cool having a Silver Star. So, you know, that's always been my position. But Purple Hearts, again, are a little bit different because the standard for them seems a lot more clear cut and dry, right? We're not talking about the difference between a Distinguished Service Cross and a Silver Star and a Medal of Honor here, where you could make, you know, split hairs about what is and what isn't and the level of this, that, and the other. That's a different conversation. Either you got injured or you didn't. And if a doctor says you got injured, then you basically meet the requirement to earn a Purple Heart. And to me, that seems very, you know, seems a lot
you got
simpler.
injured, and it was by the enemy.
Yes.
Those are the two qualifications.
There you go. Really simple stuff. So, well, look,
that definitely wasn't one of our missiles.
No. We've dealt with that before. We don't hand out awards for the people who do that, by the way. They get different pieces of paper. Anyway, so you know, you finished your military career. You're a full-time outdoorsman right now. You run a what do you call it? A fish shop, like a bait and tackle shop. What's the?
Oh, we make fishing lures.
A fishing lure business. That's a good way. That's a good thing to do in retirement, man.
Oh yeah. So we bought this fishing lure company about a year ago, a little over a year ago. Kind of saw the writing on the wall that I was going to be medically retired. So me and my brother and my cousin kind of fell into this business. We saw this company. We used to fish these lures when we were in high school. And we saw the company was for sale, and one thing led to another, and we decided to buy it. And it is the first soft plastic fishing lure company. The guy that invented the rubber worm founded this company back in 1946.
Wow.
And it's moved places over the years, and the last place it was ran was Valparaiso, Indiana. DeLong Lures. David DeLong invented the rubber worm, and it was been out of business since 2010. And the guy had it in his garage. All the molds and pretty much the business was shut down, and he had it up for sale. So he ended up buying it and moved it back to where it started in Akron, Ohio. Now we have a little shop in Canal Fulton, and we make lures, and we sell them on our website, and we sell them on Amazon. I
can tell you 100% as a New York kid, I literally have no idea what the hell you're talking about. So I will leave you to your expertise there. But you also wrote 3 books: Why We Hunt, The Deer Stand Devotional, and When the Red River Ran Red.
When the River Ran Red.
Yeah, When the River Ran Red. Sorry.
That's my historical book.
Gotcha. You guys can get those.
That's the Indian Wars in Ohio.
Gotcha. Okay, you guys can get those books on Amazon. And Aaron, it has been great talking to you. I loved hearing this story. I'm so happy for you, all your fellow guardsmen, and everybody there who was so rightly awarded the medals that you were entitled to through your service. And I certainly appreciate your guys' persistence in this because, again, I don't think it should be this difficult for something like this to be awarded. And I don't want, one individual to have that authority to be able to say, when everybody in the chain of command says yes and one person says no, there seems something that is awry about that more than anything. And so again, I'm happy for you and all of your fellow service members who got your awards. I think it's great, man.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure talking to you.
All right, Aaron Futrell, thanks for being part of the Hazard Ground.
You've been listening to Kill Cliff's Hazard Ground podcast, hosted by Mark Zeno. If you have an interesting story to tell and you'd like to be on the show, send us an email at producer@hazardground.com. And if you like the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.